Morning. Wow. Hey, Andres, I just want to before you walk all the way out, or if you were, I want you all to know that Andres has a birthday coming up, right? This week. So can we just sing happy birthday to him, just so that he knows he's loved here? Is that right? So we're going to sing to you, okay? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Andres. Happy birthday to you. Wow. You guys sounded really good. I like the harmony that was going on. So then, let's continue. You can sing with me here. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore Him, Christ the Lord. Father, may the Spirit of the Lord be upon us. May you be glorified through hard times and through good times. Lord, may you be lifted up and draw all people to you. May people know, may we know that you are a haven, Lord, and that you are making us better people. We ask this in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen. You know, I read something. This actually doesn't really have to deal with what I'm talking about today, but I just thought it was so funny. I just read this article about a man from the Netherlands. A man from the Netherlands who's a little bit of a minor celebrity in the Netherlands, who is 69 years old. And he said he actually filed a lawsuit, to change his age. He said, I am not, when I'm on Tinder, which that's a dating website, right? Or dating app, something. He said, when I'm on Tinder, when I put I am 69 years old, I'm not getting the responses I like. But when I put I am 49 years old, there's a lot more responses. And I actually feel like people are discriminating against me for jobs because of my age. So I want to legally change my age. And he actually said people are legally allowed to change their name and their sexual identities. So why shouldn't I be able to change my age? And I just thought, well, only the Dutch. The Dutch are they are pioneers in things. But it just shows our world is changing. And we need to pray for this world. But maybe I agree with that if you can change whatever, why not age? It's just a number anyways, right? Consider it all joy. This is what we're talking about. And you heard in the verse to consider it all joy when you face trials. Now, before we get to that, does anybody recognize this character? Anybody seen this movie? How many of you have? Raise your hand if you've seen this movie. So tell me what it is. What movie was this? The Incredibles. It was the first Incredibles. And this guy, does anybody remember his name? Syndrome. Now, he was the villain. And if you know the story of the Incredibles, there are these supers. And they all have superpowers. So they have superpowers. And this young boy wanted to be a super when he was young. But he didn't have superpowers. So he would try to invent stuff. But he was always getting in the way of the supers. And finally, he sort of got rebuked by Mr. Incredible, sort of the superhuman strength person, and just was sort of ousted. Well, later on, he comes back with greater inventions. And there's a part that I thought was brilliant in the movie where he's captured them with his inventions. And he says this. He goes, there will come a point in time where I conquer the world and then I'll sell my inventions so that everybody will be super. We won't have supers anymore because everybody's going to have the power. Everybody will be super. And he says, when everybody's super, when everyone's super, what's the next line? You have to push enter again. No one will be. And I thought, that is brilliant. When everybody's special, then nobody's special. There's a book, and this is a sort of a springboard. We're not going to talk so much about that, but there's a book. And if you ever have read this book, and it's not really out there that much, this guy, Tim Elmore, is a Christian, a motivational speaker who has written some books called Habitudes. It's about growing leadership. And he works specifically with like collegiate age and some high school age, but usually a little bit older, and on how to grow leadership. And he actually came to Arlington once. We had him do a presentation. And he wrote this book in 2010. And he wrote, there's a section near the latter part of the book that talks about the 7 lies that he calls them. And he says the 7 lies that have affected what we would now call millennial generation, and maybe other generations, is you can be whatever you want to be. Ooh. And people, you might say, well, we should be preaching that you can be whatever you want to be. And what he's saying is, it's not about not encouraging somebody, but he says, like for me, I really doubt I could ever be the center of an NBA team, the National Basketball Association. I really doubt. I probably could not be the center of the local junior high team, let alone. It's just not me. And he says, no, we need to actually be realistic. And there are people in college that are struggling, and I'll get to that in a second, because they're not realistic. The second one was, it's your choice to do it whatever you want, wherever you are. It's your choice. One is, you're special. And what he's saying is that it's not that we're not saying that you're not created special, but when you make yourself like, I'm so special, then you sort of start comparing to other kids, and maybe they're not as special as I am. One was that every kid should go to college. He said, that's a lie, because not everybody's built for that. You can have it all now. Now, that has been affecting several generations. Here's the one that this specifically talks about, is you're just a winner. You're a winner just because you participated. When I taught at Academy, we used to have awards we had a sports award, and then we also had an academic awards, just, for people that excelled and really worked hard in school. And I know sometimes, people are gifted certain ways. Well, there were a couple of parents that didn't like that. So they shut down all awards. And they said, there was a big enough movement that said, if you're not going to give awards to everybody, then don't give any awards out. So there were no awards. The last year I was there, they said we cannot do awards for scholastic achievement because it was hurting people's feelings. I know we might differ on those kinds of. I'm a little bit old school when it comes to it. I'm of the old school that says, hey, if it's the kid's birthday, I don't care if everybody doesn't get a gift. It's his birthday or her birthday. But now, parents are spending more money on the other kids' gifts than on it. Anyway, sorry. That's a little bit of a soapbox. But anyways, it's just that people are feeling bad, and it's affecting. Studies are finding it is affecting kids as they get older. I'll get to that in a second. And then the other one is you can get whatever you want. That's the last lie that he has. In his book, and I'm not going to read it out there, but he said from collegiate to about the 25-year-old age, now this was 2010, but I'm sure it hasn't changed too much since then. He said this is the highest that depression medication has ever been. And there was a Time article that was just written this year that says that by far, this is the highest that counseling because of depression has happened. And what some are attributing it to is that they said you can succeed in anything you do, and parents usually help along a little bit in that, doing projects and everything. And once they get to college, they're actually learning failure. And when they learn failure, they don't know how to cope with failure, and so they're going to depression medication. And it's changing the landscape of the college scene and the early job scene. Actually, I have a friend in Texas. It blows my mind, just parenting. I just come from an older, different model, because I'm old, but not as old as Rod. But it's funny, my friend is an engineer for Lockheed Martin down in Texas, and he said they have just opened, this was about 5 years ago, they had just opened a branch of their HR department to handle parent issues. Because there were parents that were calling, asking why their kids were not hired. There were parents calling. So they had to make a specific department of HR to say, we're sorry, but your child did not, There were parents calling for their 26-year-old children saying, why didn't you hire my kid? People are struggling with coping. Sorry, it is a little bit of a soapbox of mine. If we don't learn how to do things on our own, if we don't learn from the stresses around us, we will fall hard. You think about this. If you go to the next slide. Now, it's not a very good picture. Sorry about the quality. But all of us, well, I'm assuming all of us, at one point struggled through the walking, learning process. And there were times where we fell. And it's good that you fall because and it's good that you have the stress of this because you learn, your muscles learn how to move, and also you learn coordination. But could you imagine if parents used this all the time? Could you imagine if we as adults had this contraption and it would hook to something because we never learned how to walk on our own, and it would, we had it, our infrastructure had these cords all around, and you're strapped in and you just, you sort of move around because you never learn, because nobody ever let you fall. And you walked around town doing this. Stress is actually good. It helps us grow. Let's go back to the text. The text in James chapter 1 says this. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance or endurance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you will be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. So what he's saying is, I know there's stress on your muscles. I know you're trying to figure out the coordination, but it's good for you. You need it, or you will not mature. You know, muscle growth strictly happens because of stress. Do you understand that? Because of something pushing against you. That's why muscle growth. I was reading some articles on why muscles don't happen. Actually, by the way, do you know that muscles growing is actually micro tears in your muscle? Like when you work out, you're actually tearing your muscle apart, and then it's rehealing itself. Just bigger. Like Ed Williams, Ed Williams big. I wish it would help me grow this way, But my muscles don't work that way, and I guess that's bone structure. But what it says here is, if you're not growing, because this was, to help people grow, building muscle is simply the process of the body reacting to increased stress. You put stress on your muscles in the gym, and they grow bigger to cope with the stress. The body is very quick to adapt to any changes. This includes your workout. Once your body adapts to your workout routine, it will not see the need to build anymore. And it's saying if you keep it the same routine, it's not going to grow because it needs a different kind of stress, more stress. And then it says that you need to have progression. Progression builds muscle. Without it, it won't grow. Progression is the constant increase of weight, stress, and intensity required. So actually, you won't get stronger unless it changes. That is the whole premise of working out. And me as somebody who does like to go to the gym, ironically, and it sounds so weird, when I have a spotter, and if you understand what a spotter is somebody that keeps me from killing myself at the gym. So whether I'm doing squats or I'm doing bench press, if somebody is spotting me, it means I want to test my limits. I want to test my limits, but I want somebody there just in case it drops on me. By the way, I have dropped weight on me before. And it was even worse than just dropping it like this. I was just a tangent story. I was working decline on the decline bench. Do you know what a decline bench is? Okay, so you have a flat bench like this. Incline works the top part of your chest, so you're sort of sitting up like this. Decline is that your head is facing down, meaning gravity will pull the bar down towards my neck. So what happened is somebody told me, it's better on your wrist if you put the bar right here and you don't put your thumb right here. So I was doing it. Flat bench, okay. On the decline, it was there, but it rolled off. And praise the Lord, as it was falling, it hit here and bounced here, but it rolled to my neck. And I didn't have a spotter. It wasn't real heavy. It was 225 pounds right here. And luckily there was a guy, it was early in the morning, there was a guy that saw me and said, "Hey, could you use some help?" Yeah. Boom, took it off. But a spotter to me, a good spotter, not in that case, but a good spotter is not somebody who will just take it off of me if I'm trying to grow. They let me push through the weight. The times that I've lost, like a squat when I've gone heavy, is when they grab, sometimes it's like they put me in a seatbelt at a roller coaster and they're all up, they're holding me up. My feet are dangling, But I want to feel the weight. I want to feel sore the next day. That's when I know growth will happen. If I am taken from any kind of adversity, like whenever there's adversity, if I'm just saved from that, I will not grow. Does that make sense? Actually, if you work out hard enough, you might look like this. Somehow we caught this picture. Taking selfies at the gym. Stress, adversity is the way we grow. Now, there is a rabbi that I love reading some of his writings. And he just passed away not too long ago. His last name is Tversky. He in Pittsburgh, he opened up this first alcoholic helping facility. And I want to show you just a short thing that he says about stress and adversity. Wasn't that insightful? Do you think that James, the author of this book, had insight that we should count it a joy, that God is actually allowing this to happen for growth? But it's not going to be easy. That's why it's written. There is just garbage out there that will happen to us that will not feel good. If you have been through a divorce or a sick or dying child or parent, if you have been hurt in any kind of relationship, it's not easy. And that's not what James is saying, is just suck it up. You'll be fine. No, he's saying that God will use this situation for growth. And part of the reason that he says this is because in this day and age, in first century Christian living, it was seen as a curse to have bad things happen. You were doing something wrong against God, so you're cursed because it's bad. And he's saying is, no. You should know that you are still under the grace of God, even more so. Because God will use this junky situation to make you stronger. Actually, I want to share a couple of verses that emphasize this. In 1 Peter 1, Peter says this, "In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials." And some of you know exactly what he's talking about. "These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, or of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." Later in that book, it says this, "Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice inasmuch as you participate in the sufferings of Christ, so that you may be overjoyed when his glory is revealed." From Jesus' mouth himself, one of his last speeches to his disciples in John 16 says this, "I have told you these things, so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble," or tribulations, however your translation is. You will have trials. But be of good cheer, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. That is one of my favorite verses. I know things are bad, but know that I have overcome the enemy. And in Job, and you know the sufferings of Job, he says this, but he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. I will be refined. I will be mature, what James says there. And then in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, it says this, therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles, which I know at times it does not seem like that, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. What encouragement. Again, realistically, we understand that there is pain, there are trials, there's stuff that you're going through. And the people around you, they're going through that same stuff or something similar. That's the human condition. Pain, sorrow, crying, death, that is the human condition. So he says, consider it pure joy that you get to do this. But then in verse 5 he says this, if anyone lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That man should not think he will receive anything from the Lord. He is double-minded. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all that he does. I think that. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if you've ever noticed this when you've read the book of James, if you have read the book of James. But the book of James just said that if you have various trials, it is good because it will build what? Do you remember what the word was? Perseverance or endurance. Patience. And that builds maturity. Now, the opposite of maturity is immaturity. But in this case, there is a context. Is the double-minded person. Somebody who cannot... You notice how it says you're like a wave that is blown. You're like a kid that can't walk. You're the opposite of mature. So what this lacking wisdom is the opposite of the trial, facing the trials. So what he's actually saying is, I understand it will be hard. And you will face trials. But it is for your good. It is for your maturity. And if you need help, the Lord is willing to give all the help in this process. And you need to trust Him in this process. Because if you don't, you will end up immature. Like a wave that's blown to and fro. But it's important in your growth. Let's continue it. I'm actually going to skip down to verse 12, and it says this. Blessed is the man, and by the way, that's happy. That's what it would. Happy is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love Him. When tempted, though, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does He tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when, by his own evil desire, he is dragged away and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. By the way, that seems to be a reference to the person who lacks wisdom, who won't ask or doesn't believe. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might have the kind of first fruits of all he created. By the way, did you perazomai, that's what it is. Perazomai is actually, it's the word that is translated trials, tempt, or tested. It's the same word. So when you go through trials, if we're using the same root, it actually said that does not come from God. The trial does not come from God, but he will help you through. So if it isn't from God, then why does he allow it? Well, we already discussed, I believe that it's because of strength. We need growth. But I also believe it for another reason. Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody know what that is? I was reading something from the sponsor page, how to pick a sponsor, what a good sponsor is. And this is actually from the aa.org page. And it says this: should a sponsor and newcomer be as much alike as possible? Often a newcomer feels more at ease with a sponsor of similar background and interests. However, many AAs say were greatly helped by sponsors that are totally unlike themselves. Maybe that's because their attention was focused on the most important things that a sponsor and newcomer have in common: alcoholism and recovery. Now, here's the thing. If I have not experienced any hardship, how am I really supposed to minister to people that have hardships? If God has protected me from everything, for the person who is struggling out there because their child just died, or their parent has cancer, how am I supposed to relate to that person? I always find it ironic when we had people that were doing that. Remember when no smoking, they had the stop smoking seminars? And the people that were doing it never smoked. And they would preach to them that if you believe in God enough, you would give up smoking right away. Do you know my struggle? Because I've struggled with this for 40 years, or 50 years. There was a pastor from inner city that came and talked to us when I was at Andrews, because we were doing inner city ministry at Benton Harbor. It was called Benton Harbor Street Ministries. And he's like, I applaud what you do, but I will tell you one thing. If you really think that you are connecting with most of these people, you're fooling yourself. Because people from my inner city will take the food that you bring to us when you come from your suburbs once a week. But no way do you think you know my struggle. Because one of the Bible studies that we started, on this lady's porch, 2 people were shot. How many on your porches has that happened to? It was a real-life struggle to survive every day. You don't know that struggle, but somebody there does. And it doesn't mean that we stop that ministry, but the people that we'll reach will probably be from that community. That's when real ministry happens. So ultimately, why do I think we go through trials that are painful and uncomfortable? Is it builds strength and endurance. That's what the scripture says. But what I also think is that it helps us to relate. It helps us have compassion for people because we know what pain is about. We know what struggle is about. There's one thing I didn't put up there, the last thing. If you know who Johnny Erickson Tada is, in 1949 she was born. When she was 18 years old in 1967, she was swimming in the Chesapeake Bay. She dove in and misjudged how shallow it was, and she broke some of her vertebrae. Automatically quadriplegic. She suffered through depression, anger. Eventually, she wanted to commit suicide. Because below here, nothing. Finally, she learned, somebody taught her how to paint using her mouth. So she started painting and selling her paintings. Eventually, she wrote a book in 1976 about her struggles and how she overcame. If you know who this lady is, she is so inspiring. She is a motivational speaker. She is an author. And she gives credit totally to Jesus Christ, her Lord and Savior. And in an article that I just read from Christianity Today, she says, I'm so thankful that this happened because it reminds me there is a place that is better. So why do we have trials? For strength, to help relate. But this world is not it. There is a place that is better.